and welcome to Network. My name is Spumelele Zondi with your technology and social media news. Remember that you can be a part of our tech conversation if you find us on SABC Network. Now that's on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. It's News Network at sabc.co.za on email. This week, our Twitter poll is asking you if you think social media likes are important. This as Instagram has said that they will be removing some likes from some people in America. But first, here's what's coming up tonight. We are at the Africa Investment Summit in Johannesburg. We find out a bit about some car technology. And we are at AfricaCom, where we chat to Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies, Stella Ndabeni-Abrahams. There are business card exchanges, conversations and deals happening right here at AfricaCom. We'll come back to what's going on here in a minute, but first, let's go to the Africa Investment Summit, which took place in Johannesburg recently.
President Cyril Ramaphosa says deals that came at the Africa Investment Forum exceeded expectations. In his presidency, Ramaphosa speaks a lot about tech investment. He's even said that some of this investment needs to go into his imagined brand new smart city.
It is the small and medium enterprises who can be game changers, who can come up with innovative ideas, who can come up with smart ideas of getting things done. Many, if not most, small medium enterprise businesses already make use of technology products in their businesses and actually are making technology their own businesses. Every day our SMEs are demonstrating out-of-the-box thinking in business skills. And I've always said that small and medium enterprises are the real reservoir of innovation. They're the real repository of new ideas.
The Africa Development Bank, which hosted the conference in Sandton, says there were 52 deals that some showed interest in making at the summit.
This year, as you have heard, we've had our highest numbers of participants ever. We've got 2,086 this year. And we have them from 109 countries. That's phenomenal.
They say they are worth $40.1 billion.
We have deals going into those boardroom sessions that cover so many areas that I've just mentioned. The biggest one is energy. The next one is looking at water sanitation. We're looking at other infrastructure. We're looking also at investment in agribusiness, in PE funds, private equity funds that are trying to mobilize a lot of capital. A lot of work looking at urban development, as I mentioned, and ICT and telecoms. They are the big ones that are going on right now as we are speaking in our home boardroom. The total value of transactions that we are going to be having discussed in these boardrooms is $67 billion.
Last week, President Cyril Ramaphosa hosted another conference. It was the South African Investment Summit. He announced that last year deals resulted in a tech plant in Durban and an automotive initiative in Tshwane.
Investors are offered preferential corporate tax regime, building support, employee tax incentives, favorable customs regulations, and support for capital as well as for training. Yesterday, I was privileged to attend the launch of a new automotive special economic zone in Tshwane, the capital of our country.
As tech becomes the new economy, as the world creates smart cities, artificial intelligence solutions, faster machines, it will be interesting to see whether Africa too starts thinking in this direction with future deals at the Africa Investment Forum.
Many Africans don't live in their country of birth, but they would still like to send some goods home. It's a bit difficult, but in this digital era, Malasha.com has made this easy for Zimbabweans living in South Africa.
This is Anele Mpofu, a Zimbabwean national currently residing in South Africa. With the festive season steadily approaching, Anele has to worry about buying groceries for her family back home, an experience she describes as being both time-consuming and tedious.
The struggles are me going to the shops, trying to look for all the specials so I can buy, and carrying all the goods I have to carry in big bags and taking them to the buses, trying to find transport to take to the buses, in fact, before. So yeah, it's a hassle.
In her effort to eliminate the daunting process of sending goods back home in time for the holidays, Anele took advice from a friend about an app that she uses to buy groceries from here in South Africa and has them delivered back home to Zimbabwe. This is an online platform called Malaysia.com.
Like every innovation, it starts with the willingness to solve a problem. Our Zimbabwean customers had a problem sending essential goods and groceries back to Zimbabwe, and so we developed Malaysia.com, Android app. You download it from the Google Play Store, you register, you shop for your groceries, you make payment, and instantly your groceries are available in Zimbabwe for you.
How it works, Malaysia.com also has several stores around the country that have adopted its scan and pay system. Customers can walk in the store, open the app, scan the item they would like to purchase and check out. When done with one's shopping, goods will be available for same-day delivery.
It's a data-free app. You shop, you pay, and you can collect your groceries in Zimbabwe instantly. Bulawayo collection points in Harare, Masvingo, Mutare, we deliver as well.
Like Anele, we saw more Zimbabweans wanting to purchase and send non-perishable goods back home walk into the Malaysia.com store to register. The store is strategically positioned in Johannesburg's Braamfontein next to a major transport hub, Park Station.
Let's go to Mpumalanga now to test out some car technologies with producer Sandile Hlangani.
Mini pitches itself at youthful, tech-savvy people who want a car that's personalized and fun, while not missing out on any of the core technology essentials.
Generally, the Clubman, which is our functional six-seater kind of station wagon, if we can use the word, it is for someone who's an emotional buyer but also likes the function, whereas the Countryman owner in particular, that's a rational buyer. So it's someone who likes the mini lifestyle, likes the idea of driving a mini, but needs the added space and the convenience that the high riding SAV kind of car would provide.
Mini allows packs. It has packs for styling and packs for technology, and the ones that we're interested in are called Navigation Pack, Navigation Pack Plus, and Mini Connected. Navigation Pack is standard on the Clubman and Countryman, meaning you get a full dose of connected technology if you are opting for either of those models. Mini Connected is a whole collection of extended services that stretch onto your smartphone via an app.
In these minis, the standard size is a 6.5-inch screen, and then for those of you who want, or for people who want more options in terms of connected drive and navigation systems and those things, there's a bigger 8.8-inch screen that is also available as an option. And that, again, that gives you a lot more options to connect your phone to your life, to your car, to your cell phone. You can control certain features of the car using the Mini Connected app. In that way, there's a lot more integration, I suppose, between people's smartphones and their cars.
So I like what they're doing with Mini Connected. We didn't get to use it today, but they're talking about car-to-car communication and the cars talking to each other about traffic jams and accidents and things like that. I think that can help a lot of with people driving around congested cities. So the tech is definitely there in the car, and it's fun to drive. So we had a lot of fun today.
There's a range of technologies on offer through the Mini, and Mini Connected is actually pretty good for those who want something out of the car as well as in the car.
It is SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. After the break, I chat to Communications Minister Stella Ndabeni-Abrahams about what's going on here at AfricaCom. It is SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Welcome back. Now, Google has deployed some Wi-Fi stations here in Cape Town. This is in some of the townships. Now, Wi-Fi and 5G technology formed some part of the conversation that took place right here at AfricaCom. Let's go to some of those engagements now to find out what people were talking about at AfricaCom. Every year for 22 years, the tech industry meets here in Cape Town. AfricaCom has grown in a massive way over the years.
The big different thing this year is Africa Tech, which is a new event that we've launched where AfricaCom is focused on connectivity. Africa Tech is more focused on emerging technologies like IoT and artificial intelligence. So we have a whole exhibition specifically around that. We've got lots of features in there. We have new content around women in tech, future of work. We've got a hub where startups are pitching live.
Wherever you go this year, you see Huawei. They're talking cloud, AI and 5G.
4G has the advantage of the ecosystem, has the advantage of the popularity, the scale. 5G, of course, has the advantage of better experience and also the high efficiency when it comes to the cost per bit.
5G will enable these things. If we look at manufacturing, robots, not humans, robots. Now we know if we connect sensors in the robots, we can predict maintenance better. And if we can predict maintenance better in a manufacturing industry where efficiency is the main target, we drive the cost down.
It's this development into 5G that makes some say Huawei has had a difficult year in America. They've said that their latest 5G base stations don't have any American components in them. They are truly de-Americanizing. The Chinese tech giant says 5G is needed to improve lives.
We can do telemedicine. Now that means that over a long distance or any distance, I don't have to go and visit a doctor. I can actually see the doctor online. Now you might think, well, why is that really important, What's such a big problem in me going to see the doctor? Well, if it's a more crowded place, Johannesburg, it takes time. You burn fuel to go and see the doctor. There's a logistic cost. There's a cost to the planet to go and see the doctor. There's a time from work that you need to go and see the doctor.
We now look more how it affects people's lives, how it affects communities, economies, countries, governments.
But their worry is that a government hasn't released the spectrum for this.
We all know that the spectrum need to be licensed as soon as possible. Spectrum is the lifeblood and the engine for the overall country economy, not just for telecom. It will help everything. It will help the whole economy. So as soon as possible, as affordable as possible, and also when we license the spectrum, we need to license it by a bigger channel widths. For example, when we talk about 5G spectrum for the C-band, 20 megahertz is not enough to be licensed to a carrier. So we suggest at least 60 megahertz, for example, or 80 megahertz for each carrier to benefit from the technology.
They're not the only ones who want the spectrum. Vodacom says South Africa hasn't done this in way too long. The last was allocated to Cell C in 2011.
We haven't issued spectrum in the last 10 years. We have 4G today, which we have had to harvest spectrum from other technologies to be able to get 4G. And now it's costing us a lot more money to harvest spectrum. We are having to think about switching 2G to harvest the spectrum that is now sitting on 2G to be able to build and expand our networks because everybody wants more data, more speed. So it is essential that we get the spectrum. So if the spectrum is released today, we will use the spectrum to build our networks and get ready for the more usage that our customers are looking for.
Some at AfricaCom say for new tech development to happen to solve some of Africa's problems, Africans must collaborate.
All the countries that are involved on the SKA, we have got 8 countries, mostly in SADC, and we have got Ghana and Kenya. We are working with these countries to build the capabilities of high-performance computing, but also of data analytics.
There were not many representatives from other African governments present this year. But Africa was a massive conversation.
For Africa, as I said, right now this is the time we really expand the 4G, we really expand the experience, we adopt different businesses. There are no barrier about what business can be adopted by 4G. 4G can serve consumers, can serve IoT, can serve good video. 4G can also serve home broadband, which is actually really a key here in Africa.
At the fourth industrial revolution, Africa's journey there and the digital skills gap that creates and how governments can address it.
We certainly didn't see ICT ministers apart from South Africa's. But the conversation was still a huge one in Cape Town. Exhibitors from all over the world came out in massive numbers, as always. Communications Minister Stella Ndabeni-Abrahams is also in charge of digital technologies here in South Africa. I'm on my way to have a conversation with her. Right, Minister, thank you very much for being a part of our network. Maybe if we can start by explaining what the importance of AfricaCom is.
Well, AfricaCom is very important, not just for us as a country, but as the people in the industry, because it brings together industry players, technological players, to come together and have certain discussions on new technologies, on new approaches of how to deal with digitization of services. But most importantly, the industry has an opportunity to showcase what they are good at. I'm sure you've seen, I can't help it and not brag about Centec, which is a state-owned entity that is doing wonders, but that's a story for another day.
What are your biggest triumphs and challenges as the Minister of Digital Technologies?
Well, I can say the biggest challenge is the fact that people of South Africa take too long to adapt. When I say people of South Africa, I'm referring to government this time. As much as we have the hype to drive the digital transformation, but there's still people who are comfortable in doing things the old way, which is why even if you go to the procurement processes, you will see it's the same thing. If you go to recruitment processes, it's the same thing. But we are also happy and excited that we are making strides in trying to address those and make sure that we digitize government services, because we are dealing with a society that's digital savvy.
In South Africa, we talk about the urban-rural divide, and we talk about how rural people and other people might be left behind. What work goes into bridging that digital divide?
Well, key to bridging the digital divide is the issue of making sure that they have access to connectivity first. I recently had roundtable engagements with the CEOs of the FTTX companies to say, how do we come together with the industry to make sure that we can complement each other on the work that we are doing, building from what government has done, and of course appreciating the investment that has been done by the private sector. Because as I'm speaking to you, in terms of mobile telephone in South Africa, we're at 95%, but we're saying that's not all, because you find out that this 95% is centralized on the areas that make profit. And I did say earlier, the need for us as government to bridge the digital divide is to ensure that all our people are not left behind. And I'm happy to announce that the CEOs, all the industry players that were there, committed themselves that they'll be working with us, but they are working on a strategy of what is it that's going to be their contribution. They have even promised that in certain areas, Minister, we will do it free without you charging us. But as government, we have a responsibility, because they are in the business of making money. We have a responsibility to make sure that we create an enabling environment, which is why we're going to be engaging as soon as they present their proposal to us. We'll be engaging with DTI and Treasury, including SARS, to say how do we make sure that we bridge the digital divide by utilizing the resources at our disposal and be able to exempt them from certain things.
You had a session on skills development. What sort of work can be done by both government and the private sector to ensure that people are upskilled?
The private sector has a huge role to play on upskilling people. All of them, they have skills development levy that they contribute to. They have what they refer to as CSI funding. They have enterprise development for innovators and SMMEs. So all we're saying, we're not asking them to bring new monies, but we're saying, for example, as mobile operators, you can zero rate the content of upskilling people, the content that they must access as they get in the different skills. But at the same time, we're talking to the OEMs to say, you can reduce the cost of a device to make sure that as we talk of upskilling, people have access to the device and they have the data that they can use for free without them being charged. But on top of that is to say as they contribute towards skills levy is to say these are the skills that we require, because the industry knows what are their future investment plans. Therefore, working with them to say in the next 5 years, these are the skills that we're going to require, and therefore we help them with identifying their pool in terms of the criterion that they identify to say these are the skills we're looking at addressing, because we can't also be looking at only those that are in good performing schools. There are those that are in the underprivileged schools. How do we make sure that we bridge that gap? Which means we come from the very onset, hence we're driving the program of the Techno Girls to say we take them at a lower level, bring them to the high level, expose them to working with the industry, enhance their knowledge in terms of science and technology and mathematics, so that we build them from that level. By the time they come to tertiary institutions, already they have gained confidence, they are knowledgeable about science, but as I said, key to the science that we're talking about, or the skills that we're talking about, is that creativity side, which is why one of the key subjects or trainings that we are providing is digital content development.
As South Africa takes over the chairship of the African Union next year, is this the work that you and the President will be taking to the African Union?
Definitely, the President is going to be inheriting key to that, the work that we finalized in the last 2 weeks of making the heads of states to adopt the digital transformation strategy for Africa, and therefore he has to lead into that. The key message and the theme for next year for AU is silencing guns in Africa. So ours from our side is to say, how do we leverage on the 4I technologies to make sure that people do not fight? Because in most cases, people fight because they want access to resources. So we're seeing ourselves as the people that can add more value in helping him channel that he wants to champion. And key to that is making sure that we leave a legacy for South Africa. Don't we want to establish an Africa Institute of Artificial Intelligence in South Africa as the President's legacy? Something that we are looking at.
Minister Ndabeni Abrams, thank you very much for being a part of our network.
On Economics Unbound, we unpack everything from corruption.
On the day he resigned, he was not aware of any fraud. Of course, they called it accounting irregularities. We've always called it fraud.
To the effect global activities have on different economies around the world.
This drone attack seems to be the single worst sudden disruption ever in the world oil market. But what does all of this mean for South Africa and the rest of the world?
The last thing we need is a spike in oil prices and a disruption in oil supply. We will have a repeat of the recession of the 70s, which is really very dire for the global economy.
Join Thandeka and Nana on Economics Unbound, Thursdays at 9 p.m.
It is SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Welcome back. Here's what else took place in the rest of the world in the technology space.
With Stadia, this waiting game will be a thing of the past.
Tech giant Google is preparing to launch its game streaming service Stadia on November 19th in what it is calling a revolution for the game industry.
Google Stadia is a new generation gaming platform, one that does away with the traditional barrier to entry for gamers by getting rid of the hardware that you need to buy in your home. You don't need to buy an expensive PC or game console in order to enjoy the latest, greatest AAA blockbuster games. We take care of that in our data center, and we think that this is a revolution for the games industry.
Google faces competition from several gaming and tech companies planning similar streaming services and must show game makers that streaming is financially viable despite stumbles with some of its earlier initiatives in gaming. But analysts have questioned whether top gaming publishers will be prepared to shift from the lucrative business of selling games on discs. Game publishers also may decide to launch their own streaming services, as film and TV studios have begun doing for their content in the last few years. And now in Italy. Pope Francis said that technology company executives and investors must be held accountable if they put profit before the protection of children, including from easy access to pornography on the web.
For the sake of advancing the development of the internet and its many benefits, companies that provide internet services have long considered themselves mere suppliers of technological platforms, neither legally nor morally responsible for the way they are used.
Francis spoke at the start of a Vatican conference on promoting digital child dignity that brought companies like Apple Inc., Google, Microsoft Corp. And Facebook together with child protection groups and law enforcement and judicial officials.
I see a little silhouette of a man. Scaramouche, Scaramouche.
Finally, exciting news for staunch Freddie Mercury fans. A Google app has used AI to compare Freddie Mercury's iconic singing, with users attempting to match their best tenor to the late Queen frontman. Users sing to the app named Freddie Meter with a choice of 4 Queen songs, and the app analyzes the pitch, timbre and melody to give a score of 0 to 100.
Now, Instagram has said that they will be removing some likes from some people's posts, especially in America. They say this is to reduce competition on the social networking site. So our Twitter poll this week is asking you if those likes are important to you. Now, 22% of you say these likes are very important to you. There's a 44% of you who say they're not important at all. That figure is in the majority. At 20% are people who say, well, it's just a nice to have. And at 14% are those of you who say you are not quite sure if they are important at all. And that's it. That's all we have for you. Find us on SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. It's News Network at sabc.co.za on email. From me, Spumelele Zondi and the rest of the team right here in Cape Town, thank you very much for being a part of our network. It's good night. Bye-bye.